big software doesn't just encourage you to stay on their support and their ecosystems, they allegedly straight up punish you for leaving. And that's why the EU has opened antitrust case against them, like the one I want to talk to you about with SAP. The European Commission is often on the forefront of these things. Say what you will about their disasters of ERP and SAP implementations, but they're at least hearing from their customers and saying, you know what, we need to look into this. So in September of 2025, they opened a formal investigation into SAP's practices and specifically some antitrust issues. So regulators suspected that SAP may have distorted their aftermarket support options and boxed in their users. And the concern here really centers around that customers may get punished for seeking third-party support within an SAP ecosystem, leaving them with fewer options and higher costs. So what does this actually mean in human talk? And more importantly, what are you going to do to make sure that you're taking advantage of this in unbundling any big vendor that's boxing you in to a specific solution or service? Okay, so an example of this is, say you have an on-prem ERP system with SAP, right? And you want to use some SAP support and then have another support plan that's another third-party provider. SAP's like, no, you can't do that. It's all or nothing when it comes to their support systems. And another big thing that they're looking at is just these unused licenses, these zombie licenses. So essentially, you might have a bunch of licenses and you go to SAP being like, hey, can we look at our package because we don't use these for so-and-so reasons? SAP's like, no. It makes it incredibly hard for you to cancel them, so you're just writing checks for this excess money each year that you don't need to be using. And the other thing they're really taking a hard look at is, say you leave SAP support and come back, they charge you what we call like black or back maintenance fees, right? Where they're like, oh, you left us for a year, you're going to have to, pay us for that plus interest. Ridiculous, right? So where it stands now is it's still very much active. It's likely that, the European Commission has suggested some remedies, like, hey, you can't be as forceful with this stuff, or you're going to have to pay us 10% of your global revenue. Obviously, if you're SAP, that's a lot of money, right? They're saying you're going to have to be more flexible. It's likely going to settle, but I think now is a really critical time, especially with their push to all roads lead to S4, for you to be able to go through, look at your contracts, and start to rewrite them so that they're more beneficial for you, the business. And you can do this with any software vendor, any big vendor, any tier 2 vendor, right? By referencing, hey, things are changing in the industry. We're no longer just going to agree to these blanket terms that are quote unquote industry standard. That's going away because clearly it's an antitrust violation, which is not only happening, right, in the European Commission, but also here in the United States with a variety of different antitrust lawsuits in the state of California against SAP. An example of this is if your SI is pushing you, right, or SAP is pushing you to migrate to S4, we're going to say things like, we will migrate with you if you redefine the terms and clean up the maintenance fees of our ECC system in line with the EU commitments and make sure that that lock-in language is not in there for our future S4 environment. And you don't always have to group this around maintenance, because even like for all big software vendors, maintenance is going to be, 40 to 50% of their revenue. For SAP, it's 45% of their overall revenue. So it's going to be highly protected. Look at those offsets, subscription fees, right size and licensing, other areas that you can potentially cut back on that spend. The other thing we're going to make sure that we have is, what is our exit ramp clause? Like, what if you want to get off S4? What does that look like? And what does your third-party ecosystem look like, not just for maintenance, but also for integrations? You're going to use this time to redefine that. And even, me being me, I'm going to call up any vendor, no matter if I have Oracle, Epicor, Infor, IFS, Sage. Hell, I'm going to call QuickBooks and be like, hey, the EU's really taking a hard look at this. I want to sit down with you and look through our agreements as well, just to make sure. And that will start that conversation to lay the groundwork of this client is not to be messed with. This shifting is good, you guys. It's important because it's showcasing around the world that regulatory bodies, especially like the European Commission, that often sets the standards of things like AI regulation, just big software acting a fool in general. And if they're willing to take on SAP, which is, out in their backyard, then they're willing to really protect the customer. Is that going to be perfect, and should you rely on them just doing that? Absolutely not. But it gives you a huge open door to relook at your agreements, where they can not only support your innovation, right, through things like AI, but they can save you money, which is going to be the most important thing to being innovative in the future.